Hi everyone. I hope all of you guys are doing good and I hope my voice is perfectly audible to all of you. So, some of you know me and some of you don't. So, without having any further delay, let's quickly lean into today's session. And before we do, I would like to introduce my mentor to you, someone who has helped me in my journey. Um, so, he'll be introducing himself to you and we'll have him with us for a few minutes. I'll give it over to Malesh sir.
Okay. Good
Yeah,
evening, all the participants. Hi, my name is Malesh. I'm the founder of the company. Thank you, Divya, for introducing me as well
sure.
and inviting me for this session. So, Prophetess and some of my students are also, I think, joined in this session. So, I have few words to say about Divya. Okay, so I know Divya personally. So, when I met Divya, I mean, we can say, okay, I have seen her starting the business right from scratch. At this young age, a lot of people, they don't have the goal in the direction कि क्या करना है in 20s. But I saw Divya, she had the right bang on. ठीक है? So if I say if you want to learn business, she is the right person. You should definitely attend all her lectures. And even I have motivated by looking at her the way she does things. Okay. So सारे participants आज का learning session है. This is a introduction to BII as some of people are part of this group. So the whole idea is कि business किस तरह से start करते हैं, right? And once you scale up your business, you would definitely require the funding part. You need the expertise part. You need a sales part. So for that, we have Divya with you guys. So Divya, you can take the session, and thank you for inviting me for this lovely session.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. It
Okay,
was
thank
great
you so
having you.
much.
Sure. All right. Okay. So, before we lean into today's session, I'll just quickly give you my small background. So, as I told you before, most of you know me and most of you don't. I feel it's very important for you to understand who your trainer is, who you're listening to. It's very important for you to understand what is the credibility that the person you are listening to brings on the table. And right now, if I'm going to teach you something, if we are going to discuss something, it's very important for you to know my credibility, what my background is, and from what stand I'm taking this session on fundraising, venture capitalism, business. All right. So, a small background on me. I started around, yeah, I hope my voice is fine now. So, a small background on me, I started around 2 to 3 years back, as Malesh sir already told you. So, I had few startup failures. I had few startup failures. And learning through those, I have improvised and come up through a business company called Ivan. So, Ivan has both B2C and B2B branches where we give out consultation for business. And personally, I have helped hundreds of businesses. I have seen them literally, some of them going bankrupt and some of them scaling their business to the brands and individuals and personalities that we very well know right now. So, I have seen a lot of failures and I have seen a lot of companies, a lot of individuals getting succeeded. So, collecting all my experience, I'll try to give as much as value possible in today's session. So, keeping that in mind, without any further delay, let's quickly lean into our today's topic. So, all of you might have told, right? So, our topic is when to know when your startup is ready for fundraising and venture capitalism, right? So when exactly as a startup founder or as an individual, some of you are startup founders here or some of you are attending this session just to experiment about how this goes, how fundraising works, or how will it go? Some of you just have an idea in your mind and you have no clue how to move ahead, how to do it from scratch, or what is the first step when it comes to venture capitalism and fundraising. So these are the few things we'll be covering in today's session. All right. So the whole point is, when exactly should I know that my startup at this particular point is ready for funding or not? Right? So before we take on this question, one very basic question that we have, that we face is, why is it that you want to take your startup for funding and venture capitalism? Right? So I have had a lot of students, and when they talk to me about, they want to go out there and they want to take their company, pitch it to the big VCs, the angel investors, and take their company to a global brand. So the number one question they ask me is, when should I do it? When will I know that this is the point where my startup is ready for funding and venture capital? So I counter this question by asking them another question, and that is, why exactly it is that you feel your startup needs funding in the first place, right? So pay attention to this. This is a very important factor, very important question, and this can turn the tables for you. So out of 100, at least 50% of you will, if you're in a phase that, you think your startup right now needs funding and venture capital, 50% students of you will change the mind. So coming back to this question, why do you think your startup should go for fundraising and venture capitalism? Now, there are multiple answers to this. The most common answer is, are you doing this because it is the trend right now? Yes, there are. You can see the news. If you are here, right, for fundraising, venture capital, and business topics, so you might have seen a lot of people, right? You might have seen a lot of people who go big, and who go big in sense, who go out there and pitch to investors. They go for series A, series B, and some companies go for unicorn, right, IPO. So all these brands and companies, we see in the news, or we read somewhere, or we discuss with our colleagues, right? So all of these people, they are doing it big, but the fundamental question that it comes down to, why is it that they are doing it, and why specifically you feel your startup needs funding? So leave the question about when your startup needs funding, and let's focus on first, why is it that you feel your startup will require funding now or in future? Is it, are you want this because it is the trend, right? Because everyone else is doing, or you want this because you feel venture capital coming in into your startup, into your workflow, and you feel that you're going to make more money out of it. So what is the exact reason? So I'll give you few plain facts about how this actually works. First thing you need to understand is, the money that comes in the picture. So if you go out there and pitch to VCs, right? So if they agree to invest in you, the money that comes in the picture is not yours. It is yours, but it is not yours. So what do I mean by that? An entire amount is being accounted. So if, let's say, I am the VC, and let's say I'm investing 3 CR in your startup for 10% of your equity stake, right? So every small penny spent out of this entire 3 CR shall be accounted. So if there's any case, if even if you're taking, let's say, 1,000 out of this 3 CR for your own purpose, that is not allowed. Legally, it's not allowed, right? So everything that the VC or people will be funding in your particular startup or company will be entirely accounted for. I hope it's clear. right? So if it is something that you feel that you're doing it for money, that you feel, if I go to a venture capital person and if he or she invests in my company, then all of a sudden my net worth goes up. So I'll be getting personally money to use for my personal self. It's not going to happen. So that is not how the venture capital industry works. So if you are doing it for money or if you're doing it because it's a trend, then venture capital going for fundraising is a complete no option for you. I hope this small part is perfectly clear for all of you, right? Because it's very important for you to understand the foundation before actually going forward to understanding our prime question here. So our prime question is when to know whether my startup is ready for funding and venture capital. All right. So I hope all of you are with me so far. And I hope the way I speak, I'm trying my best to make you understand, to take you, to bring you to a context where we both are at the same wavelength, at the same page, where you're understanding everything that I'm speaking. Yes. Great. All right. So, second very basic fact I want to state here is getting funding from VCs and investors out there is not easy, right? So, when you if before you decide whether my startup is ready for funding or not, one simple fact you need to just fix in your head is it is not easy to get funding, right? But there are a lot of people, lot of startups, lot of companies out there who are already getting funding. So is it easy or not? Now that totally depends on you and your particular startup, right? Some of you are not startup founders here. I understand some of you are attending this session just to explore the field of fundraising and venture capitalism. But this is something that will help you guys as well. So pay attention to this, right? All right. So, why is it that VC funding is difficult? Why? That is the question, right? So you need to understand that these people are investing hefty amount of money, right? So these people are investing hefty amount of money in your startup, correct? So on what basis, on what credibility that these people will be giving money to you? Now just imagine you are the person who has a lot of money. So let's say because a lot of angel investors are basically high net worth individuals, right? So we call them HNIs. So these people, either they are working in big corporate levels or these people have money from inherited from their family, correct? So let's say you are one of them, some of you are. So let's say you have 1 CR sitting with you and you're looking out for investments, right? So put yourself in the shoe of an angel investor or a VC and ask yourself, what are the factors that I will be looking for before investing in a startup? Do you really think it is easy for you to invest that 1 CR just like that without doing a proper background check or a credibility check? The answer is no. Correct? The answer is completely no. So I hope my voice is perfectly audible to you, right? There are no disturbances coming. You can just directly message me. All right. All right. Perfect. Okay. So my voice is perfectly clear. Yes? All right. So coming back, if you are going to these VCs to ask for funding, and if they are someone who are going to invest a lot of money in your startup, they will be first checking your credibility. Now, what do I mean by credibility? So if I am giving my 1 CR to you, are you the kind of person who's able to handle? Are you the kind of person who has that character, who has that character that we as investors can trust or not? All right. So whether or not you have a trustable character, first thing, and second thing, whether or not you have any experience or previous sales done in your particular field, right? So just because you think, all right, my startup is great, my idea is great, I have a team of 5 to 10 people, and I think we are doing extremely great. So I think we are ready for funding now. I think my company deserves, more venture capital coming in. I think I deserve, my net worth to go high. So all of these things. So just because you think your company is ready for fundraising and venture capital does not necessarily mean that your company is actually ready for fundraising and venture capital. Why? Because you will be taking rounds of hundreds and hundreds of VCs, angel investors out there, and none of them will be investing in you. And why is that? I'll give you a couple of reasons, and that's the whole reason of this session here. So, this takes us back to our original question where you ask yourself, when do I know as a startup founder or as an individual that my startup or my company is ready for fundraising and venture capital? So, when do I know that this point, this juncture in my business journey is the green signal for me to start pulling in investor money? When do I exactly know that? When that green signal will come, and when exactly is that juncture in my business journey, right? So all of this, so far, if you have understood everything I have explained to you, uh, all of this will take us back to this primal question. Now, first thing is you need to check if you are making any sales or not, and not just any sales, not just in single digits or double digits, right? So depending on the market you are in, depending on the target market you are in, and depending on the type of industry domain you are in, depending on the type of product or service you are bringing in the market, how much revenue are you making? Right? So when I talk about revenue, understand that revenue is not profit, right? Revenue is revenue. So after revenue, there is obviously your employee team salaries and other expenses. So all of this thing, when you cut it, what remains is the profit. And I don't know if any of you know or not, there are huge, I'll just say there are a lot of companies, unicorn. So when I talk about unicorn means it's $1 billion company. So there are a lot of companies who are unicorn. For example, you take Indian companies only. So let's just take Paytm, right? Vijay Shekhar Sharma. So Paytm is a unicorn. It's $1 billion company. But is Paytm making any profit? So till date, Paytm's entire profit is in negative. But does that mean that they have no revenue? Absolutely not. They have huge revenue, but the profit still is in negative. But the company is still going on because there's a lot of investors' money engaged in that company, Paytm, right? So for investors, it is not, obviously, I mean, profit is an option, but most of all, the most important thing is for all of these investors, whether or not you are making, your company is making any revenue or not. That is the first important question. Now, let's say you have a clothing company. Yes, and you're making sales around, let's say, 1 lakh a month, 1 to 3 lakhs a month. So just because you're making 3 lakhs a month in revenue, you think, just because, if I pull in some more investors, I can, use that money for more scaling and expansion of my clothing brand. I can, hire more people. I can do more branding. I can invest more in sales and marketing, right? But the whole point here is people won't give you, investors won't give you money if you're, generating a revenue of 2 to 3 lakhs per month. Why is it so? Because it's very risky from an investor's point of view, right? It comes back to our original questions that I told you. If you had 1 CR inherited from your family, Would you invest 1 CR in a company that generates 2 to 3 lakhs of revenue, not profit, revenue per month? That too, it's not sure if it's consistent or not. What do I mean by consistency? Consistency, minimum 6 months consistency. It's not there. So 1 month they hit a revenue of 3 lakhs. Another month they hit a revenue of 70,000. And another month they hit a revenue of 2 lakhs. So there's no consistency, right? So number one factor here is consistency. Number two factor here is revenue. So do not think that just because investors have the money, they are willing to give, right? And obviously, some of you are messaging me here directly. There is a loan option as well. But again, loan banks won't give you loan that easily, right? So, and if at all they give you loan, and if you're not able to pay it back through your business, you're in a big trouble, right? So about the loan thing and everything, I think we'll cover in the coming more sessions. Yes. So today, let's just talk about equity, right? Investors giving you money, and in exchange of which you are giving your equity to them, right? So you need to make some money. So not just revenue and not just consistency. The third most important thing that these investors look for is your background, is your experience, right? So if you're a newbie, into the startup, and just first month you hit a profit of, let's say, 7 lakhs or 10 lakhs revenue, or even you can say profit, and second month and third month you're somehow coming up, but still it's very difficult for investors to invest money in your startup, right? So I'm saying this from experience. I have personally sat on a table with a lot of investors having huge amount of money just ready to invest, but they don't find the right startup. And I'll give you one simple statistics here. I'm not here to discourage you, but one simple status: 9 out of 10 startups out there fail in the first 2 to 3 years of their journey. 9 out of 10 startups. So, what is that one startup? What makes that one startup really unique and successful from the rest of the startups? That is the whole question here. And it also relates to the question that when do I exactly know that my startup is ready for funding or not? Now, coming back to let's say the question. So first thing I told you is consistency. Second thing that I told you is you have to show some revenue, right? And third thing is your experience, right? So because they need to know who I am investing in. And one simple difference I will tell you about angel investors and VCs is angel investors are mainly emotional people, not all of them. Um, but probability wise, angel investors are not in depth into the funding industry. So angel investors, when you're first especially starting out, are the best possible people for you to go seek funding. But whereas VCs as in venture capital, right? Venture capitalist. So these people have an entire dedicated team to do a thorough background check on everything that you have done in the past, that what you are doing right now in your company. So they don't literally leave anything. So there's a term called due diligence. So what is due diligence? Suppose I'm the VC, right? So if I'm supposed to invest in your startup, I will hire an entire team whose just profession is to do due diligence on you. So they will be literally tracking down your entire bank statements, your bank account, your transactions, your entire past work history. Let's say you were doing a job or freelancing, or you started a business, how many of them failed, how many of them succeeded, how much revenue you generated, how much profit you generated, right? So every small to big detail about you, your past, your present, will be noted down by this team. And based on that, based on hours and hours of research, they will be deciding, predicting that you and your company's future is going to be like this. So if the future is positive, They will give a green signal to the actual VC and the VC will be funding you. If the signal is negative, the VC will be rejecting you. So that's how it goes. Now, coming back to our original question, where we talk about when should I know that my startup is ready for funding or not. So there are two ways, or you can say two options. You're free to choose any of the option, and both the options are extremely correct. But as a startup founder or as a person, or even for people who are still, who are just exploring this idea, concept of business and entrepreneurship, and who are interested in the field of venture capitalism, it's for them also. So the first option here is when to know when my startup is ready for fundraising. The first option is generally when your startup crosses a certain amount of revenue. Right now, how do you know what is the right revenue, to put as a benchmark? So let's say if I put a revenue as a benchmark, and if my startup is crossing this amount, my startup, I will think, is ready for fundraising. So how to get that exact figure? For that, you need to understand first something called as TAM, TAM, right? So TAM is nothing but total addressable market, right? Total addressable market. Now, what is a total addressable market? So you might have seen on, let's say, Instagram or anywhere else. So let's say the food industry or the meat industry, meat as in chicken and all, right? So the meat industry is for, let's say, 13 billion or trillion-dollar market. So what do I mean? What do people mean by that? Meat industry is, let's say, $13 trillion market, which means there are people equally distributed globally who are doing business under the meat industry, whether it can be, selling a chicken, or selling a chicken burger, or selling a chicken pizza, right? So everything that comes under the meat industry, meat occupation, right, is considered as an occupation under the meat industry. So these people, right, across all over the globe, right? So if these people are going out there and doing an operation under the meat industry, they are generating some revenue. So that revenue, when you add it entirely, right, that revenue will amount to $13 trillion. So it is just an hypothetical number, okay, and an hypothetical example. It's not correct. So $13 trillion will become your total addressable market. So now first thing is investors will be seeing whether your total addressable market is big enough or not. So let's say even if so let's say it's a 10 trillion dollar market, right? And you're trying to be a monopoly and trying to attain 10% of the entire market, right? So 10% of the entire market. So 10% of $10 trillion will be how much? Pretty simple. Anyone in the chat box? 10% of $10 trillion will be how much? Yes? Correct. Correct. 1 trillion, right? So that amount of revenue, if you are generating, which means you can say my startup aims to acquire 10%, 10% of the total addressable market under meat industry. So 10% means if you're saying 1 trillion as the revenue, the investors will count as how much their profits will be. So the bottom line of telling you this is make sure your total addressable market is big, right? Make sure your total addressable market is big. Second thing here, I'm trying to tell you here is once you know your total addressable market, you should be able to analyze that I should at least conquer this entire out of this total addressable market. I should at least able to conquer 0.00000001% of the market. right? So how much would that be? Would that be around 50 lakhs, 1 CR? Would that be around 3 CR? Depends on your time. So once you know that this is the revenue I'm supposed to cross, and if your startup is able to cross that amount of revenue, you should know that you at least come in the league of all the startups who are ready for funding, right? And not just one time revenue. Hitting that revenue amount just one time is not enough. It should be consistent enough, right? I told you before as well, consistency is required. And for you to reach that revenue, that amount of revenue should be consistent. I hope it's perfectly clear. So when these two factors are met, then you can say that your startup is ready for funding. If you are just making very less revenue, don't even try to go out there and ask for funding. I mean, the option is always open, right? You'll be getting a lot of rejections, but at least you'll learn something out of it. But the chances of you getting funding for your startup, which has very less revenue, that too very inconsistent revenue, the chances of that startup getting funding are very rare, very, very, very rare. So these are the two factors. So once you meet these factors, you should know that your startup is ready for funding. So that is the one option I told you. That is how generally the market works. Now, the second option here is um, it's something out of my own experience. And in fact, a lot of VCs will also tell you the same. A lot of good established entrepreneurs will also tell you the same. So this is directly coming from my experience. The second option here is do not even think of going for funding unless and until it's absolutely necessary. There are startups out there who are right now big brands, global brands, and who are till date, bootstrapped startups. Now, what do I mean by bootstrap? If my company makes revenue, I roll the same money back into my business. I do not ask for external help. So as much as money I am making in my company, I roll it back in my business, and some profits I keep it aside for my personal use. So this is something you call it as bootstrapping, as in you are solely building this startup. Yes, correct, Zerodha. Correct. You are solely building the startup based on the revenue your company is generating. And I think most of you are traders here, so you already know the company Zerodha, right? Zerodha till date is a bootstrap startup. Can you believe it? It's a huge brand, right? It's still a bootstrap startup. I think they're looking out for funding options now, but there was a phase, where Zerodha was rejoiced, celebrated for being so successful and just on solely the basis of bootstrapping. And why is it required? So I'm telling you from this personal experience, do not go for fundraising option until absolutely necessary. Because when you're giving out equity to someone, equity is like your blood, right? Because your startup is a part of you. So if you're giving your equity to someone, it's like you're sharing your blood to someone. One time it's okay, but that thing is going to be forever. So if I have 1% share in your company, that is going to be forever. So before you share your equity to someone, I want you to, be mentally prepared and in the same wavelength as, um, do it only if it's your last resort, last option possible. And obviously, if someone is just offering you their expertise and all, that is also a good option to give up your equity. But except for that, anything else, unless and until if it's absolutely necessary, do not go for fundraising. Do not go for fundraising. You're starting up with your, let's say, founders or your mentors or your co-founders or your friends, that is fine. But when I'm talking about fundraising, which means you're bringing in huge amount of money in your startup, so unless and until that is absolutely necessary, do not go for it. So when do you know that it's absolutely necessary? When you have no other option. When you reach a junction where you have only two options. The first option is either you scale your company or if you don't scale, your company will degrade. So we call it this as boom point, BOOM, right? So what is a boom point? Basically, you have two options: either you scale the company or the company degrades. So you have no other option. You cannot let the company degrade, right? So you have to scale. And for scaling, you need investment capital in your company. So obviously, if you know you need capital in your company and you have no other option, all your finances, personal finances are out, then is the chance for you to go seek out funding and venture capital. So this is the second option. I'll just do a small recap on it, right? The first option is when you feel you have reached a certain amount of revenue in sales consistently. Consistently. So that certain amount of revenue should be, relatable to your TAM, that is total addressable market. So by market standards, your startup is ready for fundraising. And the second option I told you out of my experience, do not go for fundraising until absolutely necessary. So when to know it is absolutely necessary? When you reach at a point where you only have two options. When you reach at that boom point, right? So when you only have two options, either your company scales at this point or your company degrades at this point. So obviously you choose scaling, and if you are completely out of your personal finances to scale, that is the point where you go out and seek for funding and venture capital. I hope it is clear for everyone. So I hope I have solved your question of when to know if my startup is ready for fundraising and venture capital. Right. So that was the topic of today's session, and I hope I have clearly made you understand about this. So 5 more minutes in this session. We'll take some question and answers. If you guys have, you can drop it in the chat box. Any sort of questions, if you have, you can drop it in the chat box. Or if you have completely understood today's session, right? If you have completely understood today's session, you can just type a yes in the chat box. Or if today's session is completely clear to you, you can just type a yes in the chat box. That's good. So most of the students, yes, it'll be really great if you reply, every single one of you. That's perfect. That's good. So we'll be having one more free session like this in the coming week, at the start of the coming week, and the topic will be something else. So all of your questions, I think, revolve around our second topic. It will be revealed to you very soon. Yes, can you conduct any another session regarding funding startup idea? What is series funding? All right. So all these things will be covered in the coming sessions. Also, if you want a system, a proper structured, organized system of attending all of these sessions. So these are just the free marathon sessions. So there's a whole 10 hours course made for this thing, for entirely business, fundraising, and venture capitalism. So if you want the details, let me know. I'm just typing a WhatsApp number here. You can send your email ID and your name to this particular WhatsApp ID, and they will get back to you with details. All right. So the next free session will be happening very soon. Stay tuned, everyone, and I hope you have understood the session. Um, I got your questions, and depending on the right question or the question that we have received more, so depending on that, we will think about the topic of the next session. Yes, so it will be announced very soon in all of your groups. So all of these questions will be answered there. And as I told you, one last thing, if I want you to leave with this, understand that business is something, business and entrepreneurship is for something who wants a system that will make them money even without them involving it, right? So I am not against, I'm not against for you going out there and getting high paying jobs, or having a freelancing career or anything. But business and entrepreneurship is solely, a part of journey. And obviously the fundraising and venture capitalism comes along, so it's for people who want to build streams of incomes, right, by just sitting and while the business is working for them. So we'll be talking about a lot of this in the coming free sessions. You guys can attend anytime. So it's nice talking to you. As I told you, there's a structured, organized 10 hours course for you. For more details, you can WhatsApp on that number that I have given you here. The team will get back to you. Please make sure you're sharing your name and your email ID. Yes. With that, let's end today's session, and I'll be seeing you guys next week. Right? All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Perfect. I hope everyone took notes. It is something that will definitely help you in your business journey, or even if you're someone who's trying to explore this field, it is something that will definitely help you without any doubt. All right then. I'll see you guys very soon. Have a very good day.